How's it going, everybody? I'm Bro, and I'm joined by Joseph.
Hello.
The myth, the man, the legend. Once again,
The protege.
back. The protege. This is very true. Hope everyone's having a wonderful Tuesday. These videos usually come out on Tuesday.
Yes.
Yes, so far.
Yes.
Which,
It is
speaking of,
Tuesday right now.
it is Tuesday right now. We're still workshopping the name of our podcast. I think we're still naming it Nameless cEDH Podcast because it kind of goes with our gameplay.
I think it'll eventually transform to like basic something.
Basics
We'll
and
get
beyond.
there.
We'll get there one of these days. But enough talking. We're here to talk about going to your first cEDH tournament.
Yes.
I know, a lot of people sometimes haven't gone to a large cEDH tournament. And we thought, you know what? Let's talk about what you can expect since, we have gone to a handful of huge tournaments, outside of Colorado and in Colorado. So we have a little bit of experience. We can just share what you can expect if this is your first go around. But yeah, hope you guys find this useful. And as always, if you have any comments, feedback, or any of your self tips, any of your own tips, goodness gracious, that you have, please leave them in the comment section down below, and we'll try to engage with you and share them and highlight them so folks can go check them out.
We love to talk to you guys and respond and like give more like back and forth, just like talk. First of all, before we go too deep into it, I consider a larger tournament like probably 128 person plus.
Yep.
Maybe a little bit smaller, but just to start right there.
Typically a 2-day tournament,
Yes.
if you will.
2-day tournament or like very long 1-day tournament.
Very, very long 1-day tournament, which I find those to be harder than 2-day tournaments because you're exhausted. You're mentally
Yes.
exhausted by like round 5, top 16.
Once you play your 5th round, then you go to top 16 and top 4. If you're in top 4, that's your 7th game in a row, like pretty much nonstop. It gets fatigue. It's bad.
Yeah. So yeah, well, I guess thanks for the caveat. I think it's really important for folks to know what exactly you can apply some of these tips for your big tournaments too, like 64 tournaments or 1-day tournaments, because they're pretty generic and they usually are applicable for. But this is mainly focused on the large tournaments that you're maybe looking to do out of state or in your own state that are a little bit of a distance. So without further ado, we kind of divided this into like 3 little sections. We'll start off with prepping before your cEDH tournament. So this is before the tournament, right? This is when you see the announcement, people are talking about it like, hey, you should go sign up for this tournament, right?
Are you going to go with me? We can all carpool. We can, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. First thing you should always do is check out the announcement page to make sure you're familiarized with the rules and see what they're offering and like how the tournament is set up, right?
Prize support.
Prize support is very important for a few folks. It's either is it store credit, is it cash, or you giving like a rare card like a volcanic island, a Gaia's cradle, etc., etc., etc. Few people really care about the points, so some tournaments won't give you points, but some tournaments will give you points. It'll be gold, platinum, etc., etc.
And that's for top deck. I think there's not quite one for Spice Rec yet, but I think that might be coming. But again, the point system, like you're saying, is like something people sometimes care a lot about, and that might be relevant for you or your friends.
Yeah, and well, again, reading 90% or so of the tournaments for cEDH are proxy friendly.
Yep.
So just check that because otherwise you might show up to tournament when they don't allow proxies and it'll be
really awkward.
Really, really awkward.
And then you paid your entry and you're like, oh, you can't get it back.
Yeah, you can't play. And sometimes like most tournaments are like not paper slip proxies, so they have to be like MCOs, if you will.
Yep.
So they have to be like one piece of paper, one cardboard, like literally a piece of cardboard. It'll say like proxy or whatever in the back.
Same thickness as a magic card, basically.
Exactly. And that's so people aren't like marking their cards technically, right? Because technically they can have like a little width or whatever difference, and you can like sometimes find the difference between them.
In theory, it's to prevent cheating. There are ways to cheat, but like it'd be really hard. But still, to be fair and correct.
Yeah. So first thing you should always do, read that announcement page because it's either going to be through Facebook, through Top Deck, through Spice Rack, through any of their means, or Discord potentially.
Yeah, Discord announcements. That's a lot of the time I see.
Yeah. So just make sure you're somewhat familiarized yourself so you know what you're getting into, right? The worst thing you can do is like you get to the venue and it's a completely different experience of what you hoped for, right?
Yeah.
I've known that sometimes I've participated in tournaments in the past where the TO just straight out changed how the tournaments run. And it's like, whoa, bro, what are you doing?
Planning for this for like 2-3 months and expected this, and you said, nope, just kidding this.
Yeah, like different people are getting different caches, or there's like different set of rounds, which I understand when there's like different set of rounds per player attendance, but that needs to be kind of described in like, okay, if only 64 people sign up for this 2-day tournament, we're only doing rounds X through X, we're doing top X
It's going to be
through
actually
X.
1 day instead of 2 day. But again, if they don't tell you that right away or not at all, then it can totally skew how you play, how your rounds go, things like that.
Yeah, your mentality for the whole day changes. I know we already mentioned Top Deck and Spice Rack. Those are currently the 2 cEDH apps that are run, tournament apps. So I would also encourage yourself to become familiarized with this become familiarized with them and make sure you already have accounts set
Yeah.
up for either of them. Top Deck is the most popular one right now to date. Spice Rack only gets used for Wizards events.
Wizard sanctioned at least.
Thank you. Yeah, which are typically all of them are proxy friendly.
Yeah.
So just be aware of the kind of tournaments you're signing up for as well, and be familiar with both the apps and make sure you have them handy. Right?
And like you said, it counts. Like if you're having account troubles day of and you can't log in, and you just don't start the round, like I can't really help you with that. You kind of had to do that beforehand. It's not like oh crap.
It's pretty stressful when you show up to something and you like need to figure something out on the spot, right?
Yeah.
If you can avoid any stress on the day of a tournament, that's gonna help you out a lot, right? Because your mind's just gonna be on your gameplay, right? Only you don't want to be dealing with like all the other different stresses from a venue or a tournament or whatever.
You want to clear your mind and like be ready to play. Be ready to play your best game.
So now that you've figured out, the announcement page, and you hopefully know where the tournament is going to be taking place at, you should be familiarized with the area around the venue and the venue itself, right? Is there food there? Can I stay at the venue, right? Is there a hotel by? Is there Airbnbs that I can rent out, right? Like what's in this area so that you can plan around your days, right? Because you're going to be there multiple days and potentially a couple nights too, right?
Like where am I going to get breakfast before the tournament or after round one, or am I getting lunch? Is there water or drinks I can buy later if I don't have any? Things like that are really important. Even like, hey, where are we going for dinner later? Because
go grab some drinks.
Yeah, go grab some drinks, whatever. Lobby con a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
Just get familiarized. Maybe not like massive area, but again, at least directly around you. See what's there.
You also want to know how close the airport is, right? Because you more often than not will have to take an Uber, and you need to take that into your cost, right? It's like a list of like, this is like traveling 101, right? Like how far away is my place that I'm going to? How much am I paying for Ubers every time, et cetera, et cetera.
If you're at an Airbnb or a hotel, that's also different, right? You're not going to be necessarily at the venue if you're at an Airbnb. Extra drives, extra maybe Ubers or just someone else has to drive you.
Exactly. And so these are mostly for flying ones. So while we're talking about this kind of whole thing, right, of like staying somber, typically if you go with a group, it's 5 times way more fun because you're hanging out with your friends.
Yep.
It's like a little vacation kind of, and it's also cheaper, right? Your hotel stay, your Airbnb stay will be cheaper. Your food, if you guys are like buying in bulk, will also be cheaper. It's also a fun time because you're hanging out with your friends. Your manager community is kind of cool. I know when I've gone outside of tournaments, we've traveled together a couple times, and it's fun. I think it's fun.
It's a lot of fun. Again, even if you're just like at a hotel or Airbnb, like you guys are playing games and having fun. Maybe not necessarily Magic. You're just like messing around, drinking a little bit.
Yeah, it's also nice to hang out with people outside of the game sometimes too, just to see what other personality is, right? Because sometimes we're so focused on Magic itself, right? Like we don't get to do anything outside of Magic with a few people.
Yeah.
So it's also a blast, and also like economically makes a lot of sense too. So I would recommend that. And if you're kind of shy about it, I also understand that because stranger danger. But it's a good way to become good friends with your cEDH community,
especially the ones online, right? Like maybe someone who lives in Tennessee and I'm in Colorado, I don't ever get to see, but we're both going to this 10K and we can hang out and talk instead of just like over Discord or over calls. That part is really important, at least to me, like the gathering of it.
Sure.
I see a lot of people be like, oh, it is the gathering when we go to a tournament, and not just Magic. It's everything, and that's really special.
Yeah. Cool. So a couple more things to do before your tournament is obviously make sure you have your deck picked out.
Yeah.
Make sure you're reading into the meta and what you may or may not be facing. There will always be French Brewers decks, but you can prepare for what you should be expecting to at least play against once, right? You should know that you're going to be playing against Kinnan. You're going to potentially face Kinnan right now at this time. You're going to be playing TNT. You might be playing against Glarp and Blue Farm, right?
Yep.
Those are like more or less the top decks for now.
Nagilas,
exactly, like
the
meta
big
decks. Yeah, you should at least be familiar with their lines, right? Because that's very important for your tournament prep, right? When you're practicing your games, you should be practicing like you're going to be playing. And I know sometimes when we're at tournaments, we can become a little bit more cutthroat, and you don't want to be as harsh with your friends. But you should practice like you will play. It's like when you're taking a test, you should simulate like a test environment to the best you can. Because otherwise it'll be rough, right? If you won't be prepared for it.
If your play group is maybe not practicing for tournaments like you are, I wouldn't say like go to a different play group, but like expect and tell them like, hey, I'm practicing for this tournament and I want to get good reps in and like be competitive. Not like rude or anything, just like be like competitive and want to win.
Yeah, no, when we play each other, right? Like I don't think we're like cutthroat, right?
No.
But we do play competitive, right? We're making optimal plays that we would in a tournament, right? Like, I'm sorry if I'm countering your Seaborn Muse. Like, I cannot let that resolve kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Or let's sit here and talk about a politic about it for 5 to 10 minutes.
If you let it resolve, you can kill it next turn.
Exactly.
Untap.
Right. Like, let's actually apply our politicking that we would think in a real tournament, right? Because we don't want to lose a game either.
Exactly.
Right?
Hey, if we both use our force of wills right now, the next player's going to win. Don't do that. Talk through it. Be good.
Yeah. Well, preparing for things, make sure you have an extra set of sleeves.
Yes.
Nothing sucks more than when your sleeves break and your SOL.
Yeah.
Because you don't have spares. So make sure I always try to bring a spare of the same kind of sleeves that I do for a tournament.
It's worse when it's one because like
you're like,
oh, I have to open an entire 100 sleeves to fix this one sleeve. Like I would just bring an extra 100 just to be safe. Maybe 3 sleeves break and you need the whole pack anyways. Like just be safe.
Yeah, it's okay. You can use that as a spare sleeves for the future, right? Yeah. Or you can replace them as your sleeves get dirty. I know my sleeves get dirty all the time.
Same.
It's the worst.
It's pretty gross. We get the gamer gunk on them. Like,
we share that in common.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, our sleeves are gross. But I do change them. I think every 2 months or so.
About the same. And I think that's another thing people don't really talk about either. Like, keep up to date with your decks and your sleeves and your dice and your tokens. Like, make sure everything's correct. I've had it before. Like, I had a card in my deck that was in my tokens for a little bit. And I was like, oh crap, I was playing like a incomplete deck. I think it's just good to check and like count out like, hey, this is my whole deck spread out and correct. Make sure, especially before the tournament, you do that. But just like every once in a while, give it a little check.
Yeah, and while you're doing that, check your Mox field to make sure those two are matching, right? Mm-hmm. The worst thing is to get deck check, and your deck check doesn't match your actual physical deck. Because
you can actually get cut from the tournament.
Yeah, you can get DQ, you can get like a game lost, you can get turn skips, depending on the severity of it. So I would make sure, like the thing I do is like I would go and lay out each of my different types of permanents or spells, right? So I would put all my lands here, all my creatures here, all my artifacts. I don't know planeswalkers, but planeswalkers, and etc. Yeah. Oh yeah. My Invasion to Ikoria that I don't play. But that's something that I typically do before in the large tournaments, and I do that after tournaments to make sure I'm not missing any cards.
I don't do it all the time, but I would even do it after games, like in tournaments, because like there was a Ragavan, there was a Praetor's Grasp, whatever there is, like just make sure you have all your cards.
Betrayal.
Yeah, exactly. Make sure you have all your cards because you don't want to go from round 4 to 5 and you're doing really well, and then you get deck checked and someone stole your card and you're playing with the wrong deck. Like that would be really bad. Yeah,
and that's like another way to just again get a warning or something, which you don't want. Again, you don't want to avoid any unnecessary stress the day off. Yeah. Because otherwise, your mind's going to be somewhere else, right? And you don't want that. And I think the last thing before you're going to a tournament is the night before, or a couple days before. Make sure you're getting a good night's sleep.
Yeah.
Make sure you relax. It's like again studying for a test. Like you're not trying to cramp the night before because you're just hurting yourself at that point. Trusting yourself and your skills. I don't follow this rule. I make all the poor decisions for some reason the night off, or I'm like heartbroken or something. I'm like my best tournaments. I'm literally depressed, heartbroken, or hungover.
I will say, like, a lot of the time going from day 1 to day 2, and you lobby con a little bit, and you had maybe a little too good of a time. Sometimes I do better that way. I don't think I should be, but I think I just have to like lock myself in. I'd be like, okay, I drank or did whatever. I have to focus now, and like my mental is there. Like, do it.
Maybe it can ease up your way of thinking, right? Because I guess for me, I'm like an extremely conservative player when I play. Like I will not put a win on the stack unless I know for a fact I'm winning when I put it.
Ultra with silence.
And 5 counter spells. Or like I'll be like my Visage you into Finale Devastation, right? Or something like that, where I know it's like, oh, I got this kind of thing. And maybe when I'm when I make poor decisions, I'm not thinking about that. I'm just like, whatever, Thoracle Beacon. I have no protection, YOLO.
And sometimes, like, in tournament, maybe you start off poorly. Like, sometimes you have to do that. But, again, having clarity and, like, thinking correctly and being like, okay, let me make sure, what am I missing? What could somebody have? Just be chill and calm.
Yeah, I think that is what I would recommend. I would not pull a Raul. I think when you're more relaxed and you're not super stressed or thinking about everything too much, you're going to be well off, in my opinion, just generally.
And I do think it's hard to say, like, be chill and calm. I know I just did. But I think to root yourself and be like, I'm here. I'm just playing Magic. Even if I'm nervous, like, just take a few deep breaths. Think about it. You're just playing a game. End of the day.
Yeah. At the end of the day, it is a game kind of thing. And we'll go through some of the day off kind of things to think about after we wrap this one up. the last thing before when you're prepping your stuff is I typically, this is something I just do generally, so I just apply it to Magic. When I travel, I try to bring like a little first AK with me, because you don't know when you're going to get a massive headache and you need an aspirin, or when you're going to cut yourself with a sleeve. Like I've done that multiple times.
Same.
And I'm like, I just start bleeding through my fingers, like, oh no, and here's a Band-Aid kind of thing.
Yeah.
Extra waters or snacks.
Definitely waters or some sort of drink,
huge
whatever you're
water
drinking,
bottle. Yeah.
Something. Oh, the worst is like you're at a convention center and they have nothing. You're just like, I can't even like buy. There's a vending machine. Like there's nothing. You just have to get screwed. And you're like, oh,
you're
crap.
just like,
yep.
just dry lips throughout it.
I'm gonna trigger.
Oh, yeah. And then lastly, I would always fly the night before. If you're flying in, I wouldn't be flying the day off or flying out the day off. It depends. Okay. Flying out, it depends on what my odds are looking and how late I think the tournament is going to go.
Yeah.
But generally, I try not to fly out in or out the same days because I don't want to be stressed on the day off, wake up super early and be stressed about
delayed,
that.
Some issue,
goodness
right?
gracious.
Yeah.
And then fly out, I don't want to miss my flight if I'm making tough cut.
I think the only real caveat I'd have is like if it's a 2-day tournament and there's only 2 rounds cut, you're pretty safe. It's like a late at night flight that night. But like, again, I would be later than earlier because you don't want to be like in top 4 and your flight just took off. And you're like, I spent $200 on that flight. Where?
Because I'm spending a much more on rebooked and on a hotel.
Exactly. Just be safe than sorry.
Will you say like 10 p.m., 11 p.m.? Don't sue us.
No, don't sue us. Like, that late. If it's a 2-day tournament and again, it's only 2 rounds cut, that should be good. But I've also seen a finals game take like 4 hours before.
Yeah.
So give yourself time.
Little caveats
Maybe
there.
the next day just to guarantee it.
Just to be not stressed about it. Because again, you don't want to be thinking about your flight when you're playing the game.
Exactly. Then your mind is jumbled. You might like misplay and lose.
Yeah.
Your game-winning split turn, whatever.
Yeah. So that's everything we kind of have for prepping me for the tournament.
Yeah.
Did I miss anything on your end?
Oh, be sure if you need to call a judge for whatever reason, do not hesitate. I think I see a lot of people that like, oh crap, I think last round I should have called a judge over blah, blah, blah. Someone said something that could have been like against the rules, whatever. Just call a judge. They're never going to complain and be like, why'd you call me over here? They're going to be like, I'm here to help you and want to make sure everything is correct and nothing is wrong, either with player or actions or game state.
Yeah,
all of it.
We'll go on that while we're talking about while playing the game.
Yes.
So we'll go ahead the day of your tournament kind of section. And again, if you have any feedbacks on or any tips on like anything to do before the tournament, let us know in the comment section down below, because I'm sure we missed a few things that a lot of veteran tournament grinders be like, bro, you need to do X, Y, Z because it's like life changer kind of thing.
Yeah.
So the day off, I recommend eating a good healthy breakfast. Nothing too greasy, nothing that's gonna make your stomach like explode. Sorry, Chipotle, or sorry, like any.
Yeah, the last thing you want is like round 3, and you're like, I need to call a judge and take like a 20-minute bathroom break. Like, you don't want to do that. As much as it might be like the easiest thing, and I've definitely done it. I've also had the consequences of it.
You're like sweating while playing.
Yeah,
You're
like a McDonald's sandwich. I was like, ooh, it sounded good at the moment, but good God, no.
Yeah, just eat an apple or something healthy that won't give you.
Usually, like hotel breakfast, if it's at a hotel, it's like pretty good, and you
it's
can
pretty
get some
standard,
good
like
stuff.
pancake, eggs, whatever, sausage. It should be pretty generic and pretty good. Just I would not get something super greasy and disgusting for breakfast, unless you can and you're really young and you can do that.
I still can't. I still wouldn't suggest it. Nobody do it.
I know Magic players love being late to everything. Oh my goodness gracious. Show up early to your tournament. Show up 30 minutes before your player meeting. That way you can get all settled. You can check into the app. You can talk to tournament organizers. You make sure you're all good to go. And that way, if everybody show up 30 minutes early, we wouldn't be waiting on anybody. And there's a chance we might finish on time.
And start on time too.
God, can you imagine starting on time?
I think like we said earlier with prepping, if you get there that 30 minutes early and you have nothing to do, go through your deck one more time.
Awesome. Yep.
See, like, I have 100 cards, including my commanders. I have everything I need. My dice are there. My stuff is there. I don't have random cards in my deck box that could be, like, misconstrued. Again, just be thorough.
Just shuffle a couple more times, too, because I know when we play TnT Lists, right? Something that we do is that sometimes we may put a lot of lands into the battlefield, and we might be playing, and we're like, oh, wow, we just drew 5 lands in a row. This was not shuffled very well.
Or 10 lands in a row.
Yeah.
Like,
well, you don't run the main lands, but I'm just kidding.
no comment.
But yeah, just take the time to prepare yourself, right? Get ready with the environment kind of thing. Hang out with your friends, say hi, whatnot. I think it's...
Get there early. again,
Yeah, it's just better,
there,
right? You'll find better parking if you're looking for parking. Only if you Uber or whatnot, that won't be an issue. But I know for the ones here in Colorado, parking can sometimes be an issue. Cool. Listen. So once the tournament starts, the judge will have a player meeting. They'll seat you in random seats with opponents. Those 90% of the time will not be your round one opponents.
Yes.
Sometimes you'll get a player meeting and then you'll get your round one pairings. Listen to the judge because they might tell you important information such as like when is your lunch round because you want to eat food at some point. And if there's a lunch round, if there isn't, you should have read that beforehand in the before section, so you can plan accordingly, right? Do I need to bring a piece of bread, right? Is there a restaurant by that I can go to? What am I going to do for lunch? Because playing for a long day without food, also not probably
really
smart.
Bad for your brain.
Yeah. You're going to be like hangry. You're going to be like, your stomach's going to be like all like sounding like,
also during player meeting, the judge might say something like, hey, this has actually changed from what we were going to do.
Yeah.
And if you're not paying attention, you might miss that. And that might be very detrimental to you or your deck or what you're playing, whatever.
Yep.
Just listen.
Just pay attention. I think generally they're providing useful information. They're not just talking just to talk.
No.
Very rarely do I just see Magic people just get in front of people just to talk.
And it might be a good thing, right? It may be like, hey, we actually increased the prize pool because more people signed up. Whatever it is, just like listen to them. They're here for you and they want you to have a good time.
Yeah, they will also point you to other staff.
Yes.
So you can point to, right? Like I'm the head judge, but you can reach out to Johnny, Billy, and Bobby over there.
And this is the tournament organizer, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. Well, here's another tournament that might be happening next week or whatever too, which can be like, oh, maybe I'll come back to this tournament. Not if I'm flying in, but maybe a month from now or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So those are the things to do the day off before you start playing. And now you get to the fun part of everything builds up to actually playing the game. Wow.
Your big tournament.
Your big tournament, your first big tournament, right? Typically, most people will sit down, typically on top deck. And I don't know if Spice Rack does this yet, because I think Spice Rack is like awkwardly organized. They'll, on top deck, it'll say players 1 through 3, 4. That is your seating order. That is turn order, right? So Billy, so it's like myself, Joseph, Billy, and Bobby, right? If I'm first and Joseph second, I'm going to go first. Joseph is going to go second, and then third and fourth, essentially.
That's just how the order is. It's already in there. There's no rolling. There's no seat order. You just sit down and boom, you're good.
Yep, you don't have to roll. Like Joseph, you don't have to roll for high rolls or whatever. It is just established and set up. And it does suck if you're fourth seed, because unfortunately you start at disadvantage. But it technically it's supposed to average out. I had tournaments where I'm literally third or fourth seed every game.
Yeah. I think recently it's been a little bit better, but in the past it's definitely kind of been bad of like fourth, like, oh, 3 rounds in a row going fourth. It's all random, supposedly. It's supposed to balance me, but like, come on. Help.
Here's your you can't win anymore. Here's your first seat.
Yeah. Oh, when it's too late.
Thanks,
I mulled the 3 when I was going first. Dang, okay.
So once you're seated, somebody typically will put their phone in the middle for life counters. Sometimes I've seen people keep track of their own life. It's so much easier if you just use like a shared life counter for everybody.
Yeah.
People have burner phones that they use. Then you can like buy it on like Amazon or Walmart or Target or any one of those like big retail shoppers for like 20 to $30, and literally they just have it as a live counter only, and that way you're not giving your personal phone to people, because I've shared my phone and I've been getting messages like, oh, you guys can't be reading that.
Yeah. I should turn on do not disturb crap.
Yeah, turn on do not disturb, because that is also, you don't want people to be reading your messages.
No. And it might not even be messages. It might be like something big pop up, like you get a phone call and you're like, I'm trying to type my life. I'm not resolving a NAS. Like, yeah, I need to be changing this.
Mom, I'll call you later, kind of thing.
I love you too, but not right now.
So yeah, I guess good advice to put on do not disturb.
Yeah,
because we don't want, like, if you're getting a call or whatever, you don't want like that to interrupt, and you don't want that to get resetted, because that is really awkward.
Exactly.
That can actually, if your life counters get all messed up by some reason, a judge will need to be called over and
have to go through all life lost the whole game or something.
It's like, oh,
not worth it.
Yeah, so be careful with that. I also keep track of players' lives, kind of make sure they're losing life accordingly, right? The most from our gameplay, so I know this gets missed all the time when people play, because I've also got people missing it, is when using Mana Confluence, like people will just not pay for Mana Confluence, like you have to pick 1 life, bro.
Ancient Tomb especially.
Ancient Tomb,
like, they don't want to lose that too.
Mana Bolt. Mana Bolt's actually, people are very good about Mana Bolt, but like every time they like pay a life with lands, they just forget, and it's like an honest mistake.
Yeah.
But they just forget, so you just keep track of them for them.
Also, Timna gaining life. I mean, I guess this is a specific deck thing, but like sometimes people forget you gain life and then you have to lose life. If you're in a tournament, be correct. Do it right.
Yeah. Cool. When you're playing, people will shuffle up their decks and they will give them to you to cut. This is not a friendly. It is a friendly environment, but it's competitive. So you should grab your deck and cut it as many times as you like.
Mm-hmm.
I typically tap when I play at like my local tournaments and whatnot, like local FNMs and whatnot. But on real tournaments, I would typically cut. It's not because you think people are cheating. It's just good custom to do.
Yeah, it literally cannot hurt you, right? The only benefit is if someone is cheating, which we don't assume, but like if they are, then you've at least cut their deck.
And nobody's gonna get offended if you cut their deck. No. Literally, it's again, like I think that everybody does.
Everyone should and always should be offering it.
Yeah.
So it's not a bad thing that you are.
It's part of the culture, and sometimes people will just grab their deck and like put it on their corner. It's like, I'm gonna cut your deck, right? Even if they don't offer it, because it is they should be offering it to cut it. Like don't be scared to be like, hey, I need to cut your deck, right?
And if someone is intentionally not, just again, for any reason, call a judge.
Yeah.
No one will be mad about it. The player might be, but like if they're mad about you calling a judge, that's probably a good thing.
Yeah, that's a good point, right? Like they had other intentions, not to assume intentions, but if they're getting upset because you call a judge to call their deck,
something might be wrong.
That's a little sus, as the kids say. Once you start playing, you'll draw your cards. People will resolve mulligans. The mulligans don't matter until you're in top cut, because generally people don't care in Swiss unless you've seen otherwise.
And what he means is like order of mulliganing.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah. I've only seen people caring about it in top cut. In Swiss, doesn't matter. And that means that technically first player needs to resolve their first mulligan. They need to decide if they're going to keep their first 7. Then the second player, if they mulligan, then they can mulligan. But then the third player needs to go. And then like you do mulligans all at once, kind of, if you will.
Like let's say Raul's going first and immediately keeps his first 7. Then I'm going second and I have to decide. I decide in order, then the person next, and then the next person.
Yep.
If everybody else keeps, then I'm fine. I just go until I go. But if the two of us are mulliganing really low, we have to go one at a time, technically. Yep. To be correct, it's less information. I've also had it happen sometimes where like someone kept their first 7, saw the other people went down to like a 3, and they're like, oh, I'm going to mulligan. Like, no, you can't do that. You actually need to like do it correctly.
Yeah.
Because you see they're going to 3, like, oh, this hand that was really slow, I want to mulligan for a really fast hand because they just mulligan to 3, right? Like, you can't do that.
You cannot do that.
Yeah.
So just be aware of that. Doesn't matter too much in Swiss because people just kind of start doing their thing, right? Like, oh, hey, I'm going to black. I'm figuring out my own game. I'm not sitting here waiting for you guys to do your thing, right? It does help seed 4 knowing all the information, right? Because if everyone's mulling first, right, you're like, okay, can my hand be the more tempo hand, right? Because technically you have an extra card on them, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So just matters again for top cut, not as much for Swiss. People typically don't care too much about it for Swiss.
And you don't have to do it. I still do to be thorough, but like you're saying, it most always matters once you get to that cut.
Yep. Something else, once you're already playing the game, is don't skip priority.
No.
That is very important in our game. Don't priority bully either. I'm looking at people. You know who you are. If you can. We can literally talk about priority and priority bullying in like a whole episode because it is in-depth kind of thing. It is tactical to potentially priority bully.
It's very deep, and the more you look into it, you're like, oh, I've been doing this wrong for years.
Yeah.
But like you're saying, always ask. Like, all right, you've cast a spell, you have priority, go, and then just go in order. Even if you don't have anything to do, it's like the correct way you're playing, and you want to be correct in how you play, especially in a big tournament.
Something I really appreciate, and it's like a huge shout out to the UTEP people when they come to Colorado, is that they'll be like, you have priority, and they'll point to the person and stare at them, and then you have priority, and you have priority, right? And then if people skip priority, like they skip priority, right? And I think that's actually smart because it's super clear who has priority, right?
Yes.
They'll sit there and be like, you have priority, and just stare at them dead eyes into like they moved to priority.
And again, I might not even be doing anything, but I'm just asking to be clarified, and so no one can be like, oh, I never passed priority.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because sometimes people who priority bully, if I'm 4th seed and you priority bully me, I'm passing.
Yeah.
And they're like, whoa. I was like, no, I passed.
Yeah. Like, that's not an action I can do. I've already declared I've passed priority. Yeah. The spell has resolved, or whatever it is, right?
Yeah. So I think that's, again, we'll do a priority podcast.
That'd be really interesting.
It is very, like, in-depth, if you will, because there's a lot of mechanics and different things you can do with priority, right? And
priority resets when there's triggers that go on the stack and changes what the order is. It's not always just active player. There's a bunch of stuff, very in-depth, very cool. I think we should do an episode on that.
Yeah. Something else that you should keep an eye on is keep an eye on the clock. Most cEDH games as of February X, when we're recording this, are 2025, February X 2025 is 80 minutes plus turns, right?
Or turn.
turn.
Yeah.
Singular turn. So what does that mean? It means that after 80 minutes, active player will finish their turn, and then if the match is finished, it will equal to a draw if there were no winners. However, our current meta, which we have talked about in extent at this point, is people, once the clock ends, that's when the real game begins, if you will.
Yeah. Oh, there's no more turns after this? All right, flash enabler, flash enabler, flash enabler, silence, grand abolisher. You're like, oh, crap.
Yeah, and that's when, like I'm saying, like the real game begins.
Yeah.
So just keep that in mind. Keep an eye on the clock. Make sure players are making moves, because I've seen something which I think it's disgusting and just, again, a fair way to play the game, but I just think it's just, you're being a scum when you're doing this. Is there just run out the clock?
Yeah.
And I've seen that happen. People have done that to me, and I'm like, really, bro? You're gonna
like thinking on
take
a fetch
game
for 5
actions?
minutes?
Yeah.
Like,
And you can see them look at the clock, and you're like, I hate you. I hate everything you stand for, because I have win, but you're killing the clock.
yeah. Again, just call a judge. Say, I think this player may be slow playing. They've been fetching for 5 minutes. Like,
yeah,
I need a game action. I need something to be done. And they're again, not always going to side with you. Maybe you're wrong, but like, it does not hurt to call a judge at all.
And people will sometimes politic in circles to do the same thing, right? Like, we'll be talking about resolving a tutor or whatever for like 10 minutes and nothing has happened.
Yeah.
Right? You need to be like, guys, we need to move this along.
Priority. Priority, pass.
Or
Cool.
judge, right?
Yeah.
Because I understand politics is a very important part of the game, and I stand by that, but you also cannot be burning time just to burn time, right? You need to be making game actions. You need to be making plays. You are taking the ability for somebody else to win and giving yourself a draw point. And I find that to be scummy. I'm sure veteran and cEDH grinders know that's a strategy they can take, a valid strategy they can use. Sure.
Again, it's something you can do. I definitely wouldn't advise it, because again, you can get seriously impacted or disqualified if you are caught and found to be doing that, right? But just be a good human being. I don't know. Yeah,
be wholesome. You're there to win, but you're also there to have a good time and make sure others might have a good time as well.
Yeah.
When you're sitting down, probably should have done this in better order. If you don't know what a commander does that's sitting across from you, don't be scared to ask your opponents A and B, or even the person that's running that commander, right?
Yeah.
When somebody asks me like, hey, what didn't the trusses do, right? Like, are you on odd nods? Are you on X, Y, and Z, right? Are we like, okay, these are the general combos I'm playing. I'm not going to tell you specific cards I'm playing, but you know, you're going to...
I'm not on nausea.
I'm not on odd nods just because I don't want my life. I don't want to be punched for no reason, right? But I'll be like, I'm not running odd nods, I'm not running necro, and I'm generally, in this deck, you can find that I'm running Torkoal Decon, Hazel Brewmasters, the Water Druid lines, right? More or less, right? People will ask if I'm a reanimator. I'll be like, no, kind of things, right? So sometimes I will offer up information, but sometimes, like, I will be sitting against our friend, one of our buddies here that plays Arkham a lot. Like, a lot of people don't know what their deck does, and you have to sit there and explain to them what their deck does.
Before the game starts. You should do it before the game starts, because once they look scary, they're like, that doesn't look that scary. It's just blue. And you're like, nope, that's really scary.
That's an artifact creature. That's an Arkham on the battlefield. We're about to get our warps wiped.
Yeah. I think it's also kind of like what you're saying. You're talking about some of your lines. Maybe if you are being like kind and talking to them, that's totally fine. I think that actually can give you a lot of advantage, because like I was nice to you in the beginning, and I'm not like trying to like mess with you. Just like I was being nice. People take that pretty far and be like, oh yeah, he was explaining his deck. He was being nice to me. Like, I trust him, instead of someone who's like sitting back and not talking to you.
Yeah.
I think, again, very political game. So you want to be pushing your, not agenda, but like pushing your game plan as nicely as possible, and like be a good person and kind. Also, that goes a long way.
That will also get you after the game too, right? Like, if you're kind to somebody in the game, and say potentially you won because you were kind, you know, maybe they didn't counter something because they didn't think it was important from your end. That person's still more likely to talk to you and want to talk to you after the game than if you're a scumbag in the game and there's like, dude, I don't want to play with this person ever again.
Like, what's his name again? That guy was a dick to me. I don't want to play.
Yeah. So that will also just take you farther in the game itself, right? Which is, I think, more important for this community, which is not very big, by the way. Yeah. If you burn a lot of bridges, you burn a lot of bridges.
Kind of cooked.
Yeah, because we're a pretty small community when it comes to like Magic. Wise, like the competitive cEDH scene isn't that big, right? And we more or less more people have heard of each other through Discord and whatnot. And if you do something, if you wrong someone, you will be
someone will hear about it.
Yeah, and people will
the word will spread.
Yeah, and people will play accordingly, right? So and with the same coin, don't be scared to like talk about your deck as well. unless you're trying to do Brewer's Advantage, in which case
Yeah.
that is a decision you made by using a Brew deck, right? You don't want to give all your secrets because once it's figured out, then you
And
lose
again,
that
you
advantage.
don't have to like give everything away. You can just be nice and be like, oh yeah, I'm playing this deck because I really like it.
Yeah.
Or I get to play this cool card. I love Song of Creation. It's in my deck. Like you can just say stuff like that. That's not like giving everything away.
Yeah. Cool. Moving us along. Politics, smart, and politics, like we were just saying, like a nice human being. Politics is an important part of the game. We all are aware of it. We are all aware of it. Don't be a bully. If somebody doesn't want to take your deal, don't coerce them into it. Don't throw the game just to spite somebody, because I've seen that happen, and it's honestly just
kind of rough.
Yeah, you're being a child.
Sometimes you'll win or I'll win because of it, and you're like, I didn't really deserve that win.
Yeah,
Guy just got mad. Like
this guy, my opponent got mad at my opponent A got mad at opponent C, and they threw the game and let me win because they were spiting player C, and I've seen that happen. And I'm just like, what are you doing? Like,
as much as it's nice to get that win, it's like,
yeah,
I didn't play my hardest to win. Like it just was given to me.
Yeah,
and that's fine, but it doesn't feel good.
No, so and if people don't want to like politic, that's again a total game action they can do. Like if they don't want to politic, they don't want to politic.
Yeah.
They of course they can't turn around and be salty if you didn't listen to them because they weren't politicking.
Yeah.
And if they like targeted their stuff because they weren't politicking. So there's like a fine line to walk, I guess, but just be reasonable with people. I think that's like the big picture. Just when you're playing, just be reasonable with other human beings. We're all magic nerds.
I agree.
Right? We're all introverts or extroverts, right? We're all awkward because we play this game, right? So just keep that in mind with your opponents and be kind to each other.
Yeah.
It's just a game at the end of the day. It is expensive and it can reward you money, but it's still a game
just a little
on its vein, right? QQQ. Keep track of stack engines.
Yep.
Graph Digger's Cage, Draneth, Grand Abolishers.
Opposition agents.
Value agents as well. Yep. Like how many Heuristic Studies there are, Smothering Tides, Esper Sentinels, etc., etc. People will sometimes forget their own stacks, and I think it's that player's responsibility, but it's also the whole table to keep track of like the game state. So
as much as it's their card, it's your board state too that's getting affected by it. So you have to be like, hey, I messed this up. I'm gonna call a judge on myself or on this other player because we messed that up. We might have to go back. There might be a ruling change from a judge. Again, it never hurts to call a judge. You can't reiterate it enough. Like it doesn't hurt.
George are there to help the process be more smooth.
Yep.
And they're very knowledgeable. Most of the judges are very knowledgeable when it comes to the game. They can explain to you mechanics that'll be like, boop, boop.
In one ear, out the other. Yep. Oh, madness? Cool.
Yes, of course. Yes, I know what the card is. Cool. Make sure you win with dignity and you lose with grace. Mm-hmm. Like, I've seen people, like, again, when we play, like, you just throw their cards out, be super upset, be super salty. A, you look like a child. Sorry. And B, like, if you win, like, you don't need to rub it in. Technically, if I win a game, I'm often pretty quiet. I'll just over GGs and just kind of move on.
GGs.
Like, thanks for playing. I'll offer another game if people want to play again.
Yeah. Sometimes it's also like, hey, this is where I think I could have improved or you could improve. Not in like a mean way, like just so you know for the future, right? Because we're all trying to grow and learn, and I don't think it's a bad thing to do. Yeah,
I think that is a good one too. Just like, hey, this is what I was going for. This is what this is why I didn't accept your deal because this is what was on my hand, right? Like explain your logic to some people as well.
Especially if someone got like mad about something in the past.
Yeah, and I think again, if they're salty, there's no argument with saltiness, right? Like they'll just get upset and leave. And I've seen people do that, which again, totally you're being a child, but totally fine as well. But sometimes people more often than not, people will play another game. Because they all understand. They just want to play games.
Yeah.
Like I've seen like 95% of the games when they're finished, people, unless they're saying any time, will play another one.
Especially if it's like a 20-minute game. There's 60 minutes on the clock. I'm not doing anything for an hour.
Yeah.
Like maybe I'm getting lunch, but like if I'm not, I don't want to sit here for an hour.
Yeah, exactly. This is great. Let's just get another one going. Maybe see what you could have done different this game, right? And because every game is variance, right? Just because you lost one game doesn't mean you're a lesser player than somebody else, right?
I especially like it if, let's say Raul's playing a weird janky deck and I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to play against this, but if I see it in the future, I want to know better.
Exactly. Maybe you play them again in top 16.
Exactly.
Right? Or top 4, whatever,
or
right?
a different round.
Exactly. So it's also just friendly. Again, builds camaraderie, I think, in the community, and that's always a good thing.
Yeah. It can't hurt.
When you're playing, I know that my first tournament, when I played my first Magic tournament, I was shaking so hard. I was like, literally, I was holding my cards. I was saying, if I can like hold a card. When I was like sitting there like this against my opponent, he was like,
Dude,
hey
it's
man,
okay.
relax. This was like 1v1, so it was just like me and one other person. I was literally shaking. Like I was sitting there, like I was like, I don't know. I think I was like still in college or whatever, and I was like literally shaking. So I've seen people that are like relatively newish that are just like sitting there and just shaking, right? Because it's like a nervous thing, right? You're not playing with your bodies in the kitchen table, whatnot.
You're at a tournament for money, right? Oh.
Yeah. If you see somebody like that, just make them feel comfortable and like welcome, right?
Yeah.
You want to like show her like, hey man, it's okay. We all started at some point, right? Like we all didn't wake up and
We
say,
all had our first tournament.
yeah, exactly. We like everybody got there. Everybody started at zero at some point, right? Make them feel welcome. Don't take advantage of them. Don't make them be a horrible experience to the point that they're never going to come back.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're hurting the community overall, right? If you're the reason somebody else doesn't come back to a tournament, then you're a negative influence or an impact on the community as a whole. And we don't need you in the community, right? Like if you're a reason somebody doesn't come to another tournament, like you need to take a long look in the mirror and be like, okay, is this $50 really worth it, right?
I think kind of what I was saying earlier too, like, hey, maybe you're a brand new player in first tournament, like after the game, you give them some advice or talk through it. Just like, hey, this is what I would have done. And give a reasoning, again, not being mean, just like to get better.
Yeah. And then on the same like vein of being nice and whatnot, don't cheat, don't bully. We don't lie, but lying is an option you can take. Yeah. But I wouldn't lie. Like being honest will actually get you farther than you would otherwise. But like, don't cheat. Like we've caught cheaters on our Magic streams when we stream for our local game store all the time.
Yeah.
Like we're like 4 for 4 or whatever it is. So don't cheat. Like again, small community is gonna get around. You're gonna get shamed, unfortunately.
Yeah. Or kicked out of all the communities altogether.
Yeah, you will get more or less blacklisted. And people will go to Twitter and shame you. And obviously
You're going viral.
I'm not huge on shaming people, but others will do that because they feel like you are a net negative for the community and we don't want you here. And I can understand the not wanting you here part, right? Because I don't want to play against a cheater that just took my opportunity, just tainted the whole tournament, right? Essentially, because we don't know how often they've been cheating or whatnot. So don't do that. And then if you lie or you're a snake, then I mean, I will just never listen to your politics and your win rate is going to go down.
Just be prepared for the consequences of it. I don't think it's like a wrong thing to do. I just don't like it. And we'll be like, hey, this person's lied to me before, just straight up at the beginning of the game. And that hurts your EV immensely. Yeah.
I think I think we're more or less beating a dead horse because I think most people agree on this, like don't lie.
It's you can 90%, 90-10, I feel like.
Yeah, it's pretty high. But if you're newish to this scene, like we're somewhat, you can assume people are honest until they're not. And if they're not, you can share that with your friends, colleagues, and people will know about it.
Again, bigger tournaments, there's going to be more people to talk to as well. Yeah. So you'll hear about it quicker.
And then last thing I have on this topic, and again, if you guys have any comments, if you disagree with us, if you're thinking like, oh, you guys are on your high horse, blah, 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 get off your high horse, let us know, right? Because
I don't know.
This is how we think about it. I think we shared basically everything we've talked about here.
Pretty much everything.
Like this is actually our own thoughts and how we approach the game and how we think you should be approached because this is an amazing community and
we want to keep it amazing.
Yeah, exactly. We want to keep it, as just we said, amazing. Last thing is keep your belongings with you or your friends or keep an eye on them. Don't assume you still have your backpack and just like walk away and do like a lap and the thing's going to be there.
Many times at large turns, especially like no one's watching something, it will get stolen.
Yeah, unfortunately.
And we know how expensive our decks are. Like it would be detrimental to lose it or multiple of them, especially.
Yeah.
Just be safe with your belongings. Be careful.
I'm not assuming that people are thieves, but somebody might just grab a backpack by accident. Yeah. Because some backpacks will look the same and they will just do it online. This is like the most shareable case. But just keep an eye on them because, like Joseph, you don't want to lose your whole deck. It is soul crushing.
Yeah.
To see somebody lose their deck and get stolen, it's just like you don't want to do that.
Even if it's proxies, right? You have to take all that time and effort to put it back together, re-sleeve it, all that stuff.
First world problems. Cool. That is going to cEDH tournament. What do you think, Joseph? Did we miss anything?
I don't believe so. I harped on calling a judge a bunch because I always will. So that was my biggest takeaway. Yeah. I think we did good.
And if you see somebody that's toxic, call a judge. If you see somebody cheating, call a judge. If somebody's sleeves are marked, call a judge.
Anything in the world. You don't have to be positive that something's happening. Maybe a sleeve might look marked. I'm still calling a judge just to be safe.
Yeah. Let us know what you guys think about this. Going to your first cEDH tournament. If we miss anything, let us know. Yeah. We're happy to just read the comments and engage with our comment section and see what folks are thinking. But we've been talking so much about tournaments, Joseph. You know something really cool that happened for us not too long ago?
Was there a tournament on Saturday?
We ran a charity tournament last weekend. Obviously, this will be a couple weeks after the fact, but the MTG Basics crew was able to run a charity tournament here in Colorado. The cEDH community showed up and helped us raise. Wait for it, rum drum. We were able to raise $2,350.
2,350. That's so much money for the Trevor Project, correct?
Yep, that's correct.
Yes.
Which is a crisis services for queer folks, queer young adults that are going through, potentially not being accepted by family or communities, and they just need crisis services. Yeah. So it's a really cool charity. We care about it a lot in the channel. It's very important to us and for our community. And we had a bunch of people show up to our tournament. We had 40 people show up. Even people that weren't participating in the tournament per se were also donating to the charity. Yeah,
buying raffle tickets to support.
I think out of everything I've done for the channel, I think that's like my most proud achievement for the channel.
Again, you said we expected like half as much, and we got double what we expected to raise, right? Which is really amazing. We immediately sent it to them and had a big check, and we're very happy. Yeah,
a huge shout out to Level 7 Games for helping us host the tournament. They provided the space. They provided a great environment.
Surprising also for the raffle. Yeah.
Thanks to Sylvan, our head judge, who donated their time and helped us run a smooth tournament, because let me tell you, I don't know what the heck I was doing. I was just there smiling along.
I think it turned out really great.
Yes, they helped a lot. Huge shout out to the cEDH community. You're all amazing. Yeah. cEDH Colorado community, sorry. You're all amazing. And the cEDH community, you guys are also just amazing. But, the fact that we were able to raise that much money and put a good event together, and we had such a turn up. A lot of the friends of the channel that we've seen showcasing our gameplays and just people we have met throughout this project that we've put together showed up, and that was really cool to see them. It was like tear-jerking kind of moment.
Some people who hadn't been there in a long time were like, I wanted to come support.
Yeah. And then a huge shout out to like a personal friend of mine. Luke, he was the one that gave me the idea. So you're probably never going to watch this, bro, but thanks, bro. Without you, I wouldn't have had the idea, and without the idea, we wouldn't have done anything together. So
wouldn't have raised all that money.
Yeah. Proudest moment we had so far. But now that we've talked about tournaments that we've done in the past, anything in the horizon, Joseph, that's coming up?
Yes. I've got Fishbowl coming up early March. I think it's the 1st and the 2nd of March. And that's a pretty big one. I think it caps at 300-something players.
Okay.
It's getting kind of close to the cap. I think it's like 100 away. Jeez. We're getting there. But that's coming up on the 1st and the 2nd. That's the next big one. And then we might be going to this Texas one, the Crimson Lion.
Crimson Lions, 10K in March 15th. We haven't decided yet. We're waiting on a couple things. It's been a crazy month.
It's been a very busy February already, and it's not halfway over.
Yeah, it's not. It's been a very, very. I don't think we've ever been this busy as a channel, just as an entity. But we're maybe hoping to make it to that one. Yeah. Hope to see a few folks in Texas if we do go to that one.
Is that a non-proxy event, or is it?
That is a non-proxy Spice Rack
run.
Yeah,
got it.
Tournament. So if you don't have proxies, be aware of that. Yeah. But hopefully you can accommodate one of those cost-effective decks like Jericho or other ones. Or if you have to skip it because you don't have proxies, and it's okay, we'll catch you in the next one.
I've also seen it like you just play an extra shock instead of a duel.
Exactly.
It isn't fully correct, but like it's so close to being correct. It doesn't hurt that
And a lot of people are going to be playing like that too, because not everybody is walking around with like a really expensive deck, right?
With their foil cradles and duels and Yawgmoths, like all those things.
Yeah, exactly. So don't be discouraged by the fact that it's on proxy. If you're thinking about going, and if you're in the Texas area, this will be one of my maybe third outside Colorado large tournament.
Big tournament.
Yeah. That I've gone. So I'm looking forward to it. If we do end up going, I think it'll be Joseph, myself, and Vu that are going to be able to make it.
Yes.
So we'll be there. And then, do you have anything else happening in March?
I've definitely got some more tournaments scattered in there. I still am figuring out dates because like
busy guy.
It's been busy February, and I need to just like take one step at a time. But hopefully it's more. I think there's going to be an online one somewhere later March. Sure. Hopefully I can get on to, but we'll see.
Okay. And then I know in April our friend Freedom Waffle it's helping run the Heisenberg in New Mexico, April 19th through the 20th. Mm-hmm. Funny, it's 420. I know it's Easter weekend, but the first thing that went through my mind was like, is that 420? We're hoping to go. We haven't finalized everything. I think you're signed up or not yet?
I'm not signed up, but I'm going to be going to that one for sure.
Yeah. We might be there. I might be there. I know it's still, again, there's a couple things up in the air here, but those are kind of the tournaments that I'm hoping to go at least. And then we have...
Near future.
I'm definitely going to try my best to go to MagicCon Vegas again this year in June. June like
It's
20th.
like the 18th to the 20th or something. Yeah.
So we'll be there doing I think maybe the cEDH event once more. See if I can bring it back.
Top 4 some more.
Let's do it. But yeah, I think that's kind of the plan, and we'll see if there's a Utah tournament happening in May.
Which one?
The Utah tournament.
Oh, the Utah. The
I don't remember the name. Sorry, guys. We love you, but
oh my gosh,
I didn't put it on my sheet.
it's a really big one. Salt something. Salt Fest.
Soulfest, maybe.
Salt something.
I know they're bringing a lot of different folks for that one, so that might be a cool tournament. I know the cost might be discouraging for folks. I don't know if they're trying to change. I know a few folks are trying to talk to the TOs and whatnot. I'm not really involved on any of that. I just I heard through just the buying. So we might be going to that one. We'll see what happens. But I think those are all the big tournaments. I'm sure we have a couple 1Ks that might be popping up here in Colorado.
I mean, some 1Ks will definitely show up within a month or two. I think there is one in Enchanted Grounds the 22nd of this month.
Yep.
But, dude, my February is busy as hell. I don't know.
Yeah, I think Jonah's going to try to go to that one. I'll see if I can make my way to that one. It's just like, February's been crazy for some reason or another.
Very, very wild.
Cool. So hope to see a few folks there. We look forward to playing with games and just meeting people and whatnot.
Smiling faces.
Cool. We've done this tradition. We forgot to do with Freedom Waffle on our previous episode because we were just running long. Our TnT Corner.
Yes.
What's happening with TnT right now, Joseph?
So, as you know, I've been testing those 2 spicy cards.
Split second cards.
May or may not have split second, and they may or may not be 4 mana. But I've actually been really, really enjoying them. I know I've said this every time, but I think especially VATS has been incredible. There was a situation where a player got their Thrasios in with Kinnan Basalt into play, but on my turn. So because I gained priority afterwards, because I'm an active player, I immediately just VATS'd the Thrasios. You couldn't activate it with Infinite Colorless and couldn't win. There's some like weird niche cases, again, usually to kill flash enablers or like a Tide Spout or whatever. But like things like that have happened now where I'm like, perfect. I found a way to stop the unlosable game or unwinnable game because split second. Sudden Sub has also been really good. I got to steal someone's Bowmaster on the field and give them like a counter spell like way below on the stack because it didn't matter.
Sure.
When I had a Tithe Very Mastermind out. That was great.
It's hot.
Yeah.
Hot.
Like, again, split second's broken. I think it's hard to get there for 4 mana, but when you do, it's like totally game changing, and I love it.
Yeah, I haven't fully been convinced on the split cards because I feel like 4 mana is a lot, but I'm fully aware that games are going like to turn
super long
and super late, and you have a Smothering Time and making all the treasures. So I can see how those cards are good. I haven't tried it. I'm not in the bandwagon yet. I might be in the One Ring bandwagon for potentially I don't know if it's Mockingbird or one of those like potential clone, not the wonky ones that you're on.
Clever?
No, God, no. I have class. No, I think it's probably Mockingbird, so I can get another Esper Sentinel. Yeah. Because I do think the draw meta is just too strong right now, and I think the One Ring is a good card.
It's hard to,
but I can do better.
Going though, yeah. Like even if you have Seedborn, I'm not worried about losing the game anyways. Like unless you're with Seedborn 5 mana, like you're still getting value every turn.
I'm not a huge fan of clones because I don't like relying on my opponents to have good cards. So that's why I don't run as many clones. I prefer to win with my own cards that are set in my deck.
Yeah.
But I think copying Esper Sentinel is good. Copying a Bloom Tender can be really good.
And there's so much Kinnan right now. Like our deck thrives on Kinnan.
Exactly.
Cloning a Kinnan for 2 mana that's going to stay around for and flies.
Yeah.
It's great.
And I think like when you put a One Ring, for some reason you become the threat at most of the time too. You're like, okay.
It's a good thing to say like, oh guys, look.
He's got One Ring.
Scary.
Keep hitting them, right?
Even though it's really not even as good as a Ristic or a Fish, it still looks scarier because you gain protection and you draw cards every turn.
Yeah. So I'm thinking about the Mockingbird. I miss Ref. Ref is so good, but
Ref
I think
seemed gas. I just like
it still is
crap.
gas.
I don't have slots.
She's still absolute gas. Like if anything ever changes, like if Mana Crypt comes back, I might be able to be convinced to put Ref back in. Yeah. Because she'll be cheaper, right? I'm a huge believer the Mana Crypt and Jewel Lotus are going to come back because I just the bans didn't make sense to me.
I think especially Jewel Lotus. I could maybe see a world where Crypt stays banned, but Jewel Lotus I think is, again, don't quote us, almost assuredly coming back at some point.
Yeah. So I think those cards are good.
Yeah.
I do think I've been playing Enduring Vitality a lot. Cards absolute gas.
I do want to slot it in.
Absolute
Again, I need a slot. Give me a slot.
Absolute gas, man. Making when the board gets all clamped up, Team Trust's weaknesses, one of them is sometimes we just don't get enough mana out there.
Yeah.
And Enduring Vitality fixes that.
Pretty
Your
quick.
Lotho, mana. Your Trusses, Team, mana. With Delny and Kinnan out, so I
It's
think
just Delny and Kinnan. My Soul Ring taps for 5.
don't worry about it. Don't worry.
4?
It's
4.
3-4.
Yeah, still really good.
Don't worry about it. So I would recommend Enduring Vitality for folks that aren't running it, unless your name is Joseph and he's.
I do want to still play. I want to play.
It's just like we just have like our slots are so limited.
Yeah.
So I fully understand. That's like even our list, which will be linked in the description down below. They're similar, but they're still different because you do run your split second cards, and I don't. But I'm like running Enduring Vitality and the
also
One Ring
weird
right now.
stuff like Reanimate right now, which I've actually really liked as well. I haven't talked about it too much, but pretty much anytime a creature goes on the stack, it has to get Force of Will to get answered if it's big, right?
Sure.
So it just ends up in the graveyard. And I'll pay 1 mana for a Seedborn any day of the week.
5, 1 mana, 5 life. Pretty good.
Could be worse.
Yeah. So yeah, no huge changes. Nothing from Aether Drift that I added into the deck. I don't think I even saw anything that was like, oh, I can put that into Trusters.
Know how many Aether Drift cards are playable. I saw that one red-blue commander get a little bit of play so far.
The Shark?
The Shark. The one where you discard and it gets bigger, and then you can... It also has like Ward 2, pay 2 life, which is crazy. And it's like a 5/4 for 4 mana. Like, it's got a lot of text, and it seems like generic good stuff for red-blue.
Yeah. I know Hatchetong and Loot are getting talked about. I think Loot is pretty good, but it's a lot of mana. But Deemer is really good at ramping things out. And I've seen it firsthand do a lot of different crazy things.
Yes.
Deck, I think, is stronger than Hatcheton, but we'll see. Maybe, we'll see how Hatcheton gets struck, right? It's just a good Esper pile.
It's an Esper pile that I've never really been a fan of as of now. Like, we've played against a few times now, and I'm like, it's a lot to set up and do the thing. It's really cool if you do the thing, but it's like a lot of work.
You need Hatchetong out, you need rocks, you need the cards in your hand, and then
you need the right
discard.
cards in your hand. You need a split second spell. You also need like an LED to crack for mana. Like, there's a lot of stuff you have to do.
Yeah. Well, I think Loot, I didn't realize that you can literally food chain kind of things with it. And if you kill it and you can bring it back, like you can just activate the things all over again.
Because it has haste.
Yeah. And I was like, wow.
I don't know why it has haste, but it has haste.
So yeah, I think that card's bonkers. That's pretty good. Cool. So we'll keep you guys updated on our TNT Corner. I think Joseph and I are going to try to do this a little bit more often than we have so far. I think we currently release once a month at the end of the month, the last Tuesday of every month.
I think we're going to try for maybe 2 a month, see how that goes, see if our schedules work with it. But yeah.
No real promises, but we'll do our best. Cool. If you made it this far, thank you. We appreciate you.
Yeah.
You're beautiful. If you have any comments or anything like that you want us to talk about or any topics you'd like us to cover, let us know in the comment section down below. If you disagree with any of our takes, let us know. Yeah, and we'll engage with you.
Post the Discord link for our community channel as well. We talk a lot in there. We're trying to play more games as well. So if you want to play games with us, just add on in. Text us.
We'll typically play on Thursdays, more or less. But yeah, thanks everybody for watching. Have a wonderful day, and we'll stay in touch.
Bye.